What's going on, good people of the internet? It's time for OnComicsGrounds.com's flagship podcast, Panel to Panel, where a bunch of folks shoot the breeze and talk about comic books and such. And tonight, the Trinity is not here. The full squad is not here this evening. It is only myself, but I do have a special guest with me this evening. He is an amazing TV and comic writer. He is currently working on the Black Hammer spinoff comic book, Barbalien, Red Planet. And it has been a book that, in the past few weeks has really meant a lot to me. And I appreciate him coming on to talk about this amazing book. We have Tate Brombal. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. That was such a nice intro.
Thank you.
It's so good to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. I was just really happy that you responded, and now that I get to talk about this. And one of the big statements of the relaunch of Panel to Panel we did almost 50 episodes ago was trying to make sure that this website and this podcast started with me, with an LGBT base, and it's only grown and it's only been better. And now that we know, not it is POC led, it is LGBTQIA plus led, and it's meant a lot to me as I'm both of those things, but I have other people around me to help lead that charge that are also those things. And it's helped influence comics in a better way, I feel, because currently we don't have a lot of representation. And Barbie was something that really spoke to me with Black Hammer 2 years ago when it was being published. And I before we dig into your background, I really wanted to know what for anybody who hasn't read Barbalien Red Planet, it comes out this Wednesday. It'll be published the same day of this episode's airing. If you have not read Black Hammer or Black Hammer Age of Doom, the series is sort of I don't want to say a parody, but more of
an homage.
An homage, yeah, an homage of different sections of the DC and kind of or even some objects of the Marvel universe, where Jeff Lemire took this deep dive into the sort of the more darker aspects, but also the psychological aspects of superheroes. And I've multiple times on record said that Black Hammer is the 2010s version of Watchmen, because it speaks to so many more issues that need to be spoke on, even though it's in a more singular setting compared to Watchmen. But I want to know what the original series meant to you before you took on this project.
Yeah, for sure. So actually funny you asked that, because Black Hammer, it started way before I knew Jeff, and it came out, I think, my second year of university, at a time when I was struggling a bit financially. So I had fallen out of comics a bit, and couldn't really keep up to date. And then, but in my second year of university, I started visiting my local comic shop, downtown Toronto, and started dipping my toes in again and started reading monthly comics little by little. And then at that time, Black Hammer debuted, and it was a huge thing for me that got me back into reading comics, because I was I need to read this one monthly. So it was a big part of me coming back into comics, falling back in love with comics. At a time when I was going through a lot of stress, and it was a lot of worries going on, but it was I could escape away into this world, and it spoke to so many things I cared about, and had just such heart, and it was all about comics history, while telling its own kind of story. So it was just it was the perfect comic to come out at the perfect time, to make me fall back in love with comics. So it's kind of like what it meant to me at the time. And then I met Jeff. We became close. I don't even think I've like told him all of that. Um, but yeah, and it's only meant even more to me as I've gotten to know Jeff and like gotten to know him personally. And because I know this series is like means so much to him as well. It's almost a culmination of his career.
Definitely. It feels like that because like he would go on to do other projects while he was publishing this. Like, I remember at the time when Age of Doom had first started, he was doing Sentry. And I was like, you
Mhm.
could just do that over here. Like, why are you going over there? Like,
I
put
know.
Sentry in here. Like, it
Yeah.
would be great. Like, especially like having a more Superman based character. Like we have Black Hammer, but to
Hmm.
see a more Sentry based character would have been insane in this
Hmm.
universe. But it's funny because your entire like reasoning behind that speaks volumes to me because it's pretty much the same thing that like I was burnt out. Like I was just
Yeah.
done with both Marvel and DC, and I
Yeah.
even took a dip my toe into Valiant when Valiant was like getting big again, and it just wasn't hitting me the same. And it
Yeah.
was at the same time when I was coming out, and Black Hammer was just right there at the perfect moment. Someone just handed me the first trade, and I have it on my wall. And I also on my bookcase, and I have the library edition too. And it's just this series hit those chords right when I needed them,
Hmm.
and it's I just love like that we have that similarity there. But
Yeah.
I really want to know what got you into writing, like what like beyond university or comics. What made you want to take the leap and to start like digging into writing?
Well, as many, I think a lot of writers say similar things, but I've always written since I was like very young. I remember I was like 6 or 7, and I was like, I'm gonna write a book, and my 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 grandmother helped me write like the first chapter, and she like illustrated it. And it was like I don't know, it was just such a proud moment. I still remember it at such a young age. And then I never got into it. Never went to a chapter 2 or further. But yeah, my I didn't stop writing after that. Like all through elementary school, through I remember grade 7 and 8, we had like our creative writing classes, and that was just like my favorite time. And I was always I don't know, I was supported by my parents to write and my teachers. They knew I had a gift, and they would kind of tell me that. And I remember some very strange conversations. Like my grade 8 teacher like called me over, and she was like crying after reading my stuff, and I was like, "What is going on? This is weird." But like it kind of like pushed me to continue writing because then that kind of positive feedback I think was kind of integral because obviously no one I don't know, it's hard to think of a career in writing. Like, where it's
Yeah.
kind of, like, drilled into us that it's not very possible. It's like, "Go work at a bank or go, be a doctor or something." So writing never seemed like something I could pursue as a career, even though it was something I loved doing and always did. Um, and then I went to school. I was in, like, a media production and broadcast kind of school, program here in
Mhm.
Toronto. And even then I was still taking screenwriting classes, but still not really sure how I could even ever write for the screen. And then that's how I met Jeff because I was interning for a producer here, and we were and are still adapting Essex County to TV.
Mm.
So I was interning, and I was like, I need to be in this writer's room, and the producer was like, fine, but you're gonna do work. So then I became like the assistant in the room. Um, And I didn't even know Jeff would show up, but then one day he like came into the writers' room, and I was freaking out, like low key, or high key. But I, and then I remember meeting him, and I was like quiet the whole time because I was just like, how do I talk to this guy? Like, obviously Jeff was um, someone I really looked up to in comics and loved his work. But then we just really connected and hit it off, and just started talking comics. Um, and I remember stressing to him even then in the room, being like, "How will I get into writing for TV or film and all this stuff?" And then he was like, "Tate, you love comics. Like, why wouldn't you just try writing for comics?" And I was like, "What the heck? I could do that." So, um, and I like read comics my whole life. I even like used to draw and write comics when I was like 7, 8 with my best friends. So I was like,
That's awesome.
why wouldn't I? You know, it was like because writing for comics, I feel like even is more niche than trying to write for TV.
It
So like,
definitely can seem like that, yeah.
so that hadn't even crossed my mind, and then it took Jeff being like, just write comics, Tate. Um, and then I just started writing comics that would never see the light of the day, but I just started writing scripts and coming up with books and series. Um, yeah, and I just started kind of obsessively writing comics after that.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was
Like
fun.
the ability for you to actually like find your path through like Jeff just sounds so amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I will say it to like the end of my life. Like I owe so much to Jeff Lemire, and he's like such a great man and guy and friend. And he's like really been the person like pushing me and like seeing my potential and what I can do. So I owe everything to him for sure.
that's excellent. Like I'm like I keep praying the one day I can like get him to sign one of my copies of Black Hammer because like he puts his heart into like everything he writes. Like I
Yeah.
remember reading his Old Man Logan when it was coming out
Hmm.
because I have all the issues in my long box, and it was I guess when and I, like this is no disrespect to the who took over after Jeff left, but he has this like he just rips out part of his soul and shoves it into whatever he writes,
Hmm.
and it's just like how do you do that over and over again? How are you able to put that kind of like energy in it without losing part of yourself? And I want to like ask him that one day.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely the one thing about his writing that has always spoken to me too. I know that that's like very important to him. Even when how he decides on writing Black Hammer spin-offs, he like knows that if there's that heart there or that soul of the book isn't there, he's like not going to do the story or spin-off. And that was like a big part of Barbalien and coming up with this story. And he was even I remember him being like, you can pitch this idea, but like you got to make sure it's like something worth telling, which is like a huge reason of why Red Planet became what it was.
That's very fair because my biggest fear when I saw this in the solicitations, like right before I read it, I was like, Barbie's story is really hard to like there's that obvious time gap and like you could do a lot with that time gap, but
Hmm.
he doesn't even start to even accept himself until
Hmm.
Age of Doom. Like all of the first volume he's struggling with himself, and
Yeah.
even when he finally goes to the Reverend to like say, hey, I like you and I think we should explore this, it's like, oh, he's like he got pushed back and it wasn't there for him, and then he got pushed back and like had no one except for Gale, and to see like to see the ability for you to craft this solo narrative off the rip, it just I'm really excited to see how the other 4 issues go. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. That was a huge part of it actually, because like I knew I had this small window before, because in like the first trade it shows when Barbie leaves Earth and is like bye because he's done with putting up with like a lot of the like, homophobia in the police force. So
Mm-hmm.
he like says bye to Earth and like flies off to Mars, and then he gets like right away blasted back to by Starlock and Black Hammer to defeat like Anti God, and then all of a sudden like Anti God happens, and then they're off to the farm. So I had like all of this takes place in between like all of that time. I knew I only had a certain window, um, and it had to happen before and lead into his journey in the Black Hammer main title.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was a big part of the design, and you'll see. I guess you'll see how it goes and what
Yeah.
happens. But that was definitely on my mind throughout a lot of it.
Yeah, no, and like obviously we're at issue 1, and we're still got like 2 days of embargo, but like thankfully this will be releasing after embargo is lifted, so we can talk a little bit about the issue, but
Yeah,
obviously not
yeah,
the 4 issues like preceding it, obviously. But
yeah,
I this issue spoke to me because I really was worried when the flashbacks were occurring in Black Hammer, like the first few issues, because the moment with his partner, like his partner on the force, was just so cut and dry, and it felt like there was never going to be resolution on that, and it just goes straight to the farm, and it left me kind of heartbroken for him. To see you like just go straight to that moment in time and put it in one of the most groundbreaking moments in our history for like LGBTQIA people, it just I was just blown away. But when I opened this book, and I want to know what you like, what made you choose this as like his moment?
Do you mean like the AIDS crisis at large, or just?
Yes.
So how that happened is like a few things kind of lined up. I was helping Jeff with, because Black Hammer was acquired by and was acquired for film and TV adaptation. Jeff was helping set that up and was creating like a world kind of Black Hammer Bible to set up the producers to do that. And I helped him a bit with that because I had done the Black Hammer encyclopedia, so I just knew a lot about Black Hammer. So I was helping him with that, and he did this huge timeline and placed like a real world history and placed the characters and how their stories lined up with it.
Yeah.
And obviously Barbie was active during the 80s, is like his age. So Jeff had actually set up this idea that Barbalien was on the streets of Spiral during the AIDS crisis. And he didn't do anything much else with that, but I saw that and I was like, that is a story there. And I don't know if Jeff had thought too deeply of what that story could be. But as soon as I saw that, I obviously was just like, you have Barbalien, who is, his secret identity is a police officer, and he's a gay man, and he's this like Martian superhero. So it's like, have that character in the middle of the AIDS crisis is just so much tension on its own. That I was like, that is a story that could be a beautiful, like incredible story that also speaks on so many things and addresses the issue of like police queer relations during that time and throughout our entire like queer history. So I knew that could be a story. And then I saw Jeff, like, I think he tweeted a poll and was like, what character should get a miniseries spinoff? And I selected Barbalien, and then like
so did I actually. I remember that poll.
Yeah. So then I picked Barbalien, and then I messaged him and was like, I just fed that idea to him. I was like, Jeff, this could be a story. You've already set up this idea that, in this document, you had set up this idea that Barbalien was active during the AIDS crisis. There's a story there, and gave him like a kind of short pitch. And I didn't even like. It's not like I was saying I should write it. I was like, here's an idea, Jeff. Like, this is an idea for a book. And then he was like, interesting. And then like 2 weeks later, he called me. He was like, we're doing that book. Gabriel Walta's doing the art, and you are writing it. And I was like, what?
That's amazing.
So very quickly, I had to, this was just thrown onto my lap, and I had to like figure out what I was going to do with it. But obviously, he said like Dark Horse needs to sign off on it, so you need to come up with like a pitch document to send to them. So then I had to put a lot of work into that and send it off to Dark Horse, and they loved it. And Daniel, our editor there, was so supportive from the beginning. So things just went on. But yeah, why his story at this time is kind of that, because I knew he was a character. The last time we saw him, he kind of finally got a taste of what it's like to be queer and see how the police are going to treat you.
Yeah.
He finally was kind of, I don't know, he was in this very emotional, fragile state. And he had created a very comfortable bubble on Earth as like this great Martian warlord superhero that the public loved. He was a decorated police officer. But then when we leave him on Earth, that bubble kind of pops, and he starts like he's very uncomfortable, and instead of like facing it, he like leaves Earth. So I was kind of, that just was so representative of like just white fragility and white privilege. Like as soon
Yeah.
as things got hard, he just like, I'm fleeing the planet. So I knew there was a story there that I could, but like that could happen before he ends up on the farm, that addresses this kind of this bubble of privilege that he had, that he just started to kind of examine or realize, um, and starting to see, because that was kind of when his eyes started to be opened about the police relations, with the queer community.
Yeah.
So that is why that was a very long-winded answer, but that's kind of,
No, that's fine. No, I loved it. Like every second of that was just what I wanted to hear, because it's like, I guess with the like, I guess tokenism that's occurred, and I don't want to, like, I know my co-host Mary's gonna hit me in the head for this later, but like the tokenism that's kind of occurred with gay people in comic books as of late, like there's the whole controversy of just Batwoman being swapped out for another gay character, like just like they wrote a new one, or the stuff that's happened where like, oh, they made a big deal about Hulkley and Wickenfeldman getting married, and then no one cared 5 minutes later. Granted, like COVID kind of had a little bit of an effect on that because Empire kind of got shut down like in the middle of the event, but in general, the last time a big gay moment occurred was, I think, North Star's wedding, and like maybe Midnighter and Apollo's wedding, or when Midnighter went to hell, literally hell, to get Apollo back. So to see you actually want to confront like this material, almost like rings similar to Mark Russell Snagglepuss, and you you didn't have to reinvent an entire like character like that just to put this into the ether. You just like took what you had and made this amazing concept.
yeah, that was, yeah, it was very helpful to have Barbalien already exist, and he was kind of set up perfectly in a way for me. Like I don't know if, um, and that was part of the great, because I had so many conversations with Jeff, and a lot of this he hadn't thought of, but he was aware that it's a story that only a queer person could like pick up on and tell.
Yeah.
Because obviously to my knowledge, I don't think he tried to set it up this way, but it just worked out that way. And then I don't know, I just recognized all of this like immediately, all these pieces that I was like, Jeff, these are all the pieces to like this beautiful puzzle that we can put together. So just let me like try to make this work. So yeah, that it was I love that he's a character that already existed. I love that he was this queer superhero he was more than just a gay Martian. And I could pick up on all of these facets of his life, outside of his sexuality, and then just twist it all together, including his sexuality. But yeah.
Most def. I think the thing that like ends up coming up a lot when critics of quote unquote political comic books is like trying to balance that ideal of like a character who happens to be gay while also confronting the issues we deal with on the regular. And I think one of the things that spoke volumes to me was the minute like after everything went down, he just reassumed everything and kind of got a talking to in the middle of the book by the dude who was protesting, and it was like,
Mhm.
dang, you're still in the closet even though you're a Martian, and I'm out
Mhm.
here fighting for my existence. And it almost goes to that conversation of like in and out of the closet versus, and almost the stereotype some people who are out go like say you like you should just come out already, you don't have to be on the DL.
Mhm.
Was that intentional when you were going through that, the idea of sort of that like stigma?
Of coming out at that time?
or just coming out in general, like almost this, like the, I guess, discrimination of people who are out versus the people who are like in, and like, hey, you could like you see me, I'm out here on the front lines doing this thing, but in like in contrast, Barbie's hiding like who he is. It was like it seemed like very subliminal, and I caught up on that. I wanted to know if that was intentional.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the AIDS crisis in terms of queer history is that it was the first time queer people were taking to the street in such a large way, and one of the main messages of the protest at that time was begging queer people to come out, and joining them on the streets or joining the protests, because HIV AIDS was like, it was a virus that affected you whether you were out or if you were in the closet. So people that were out, and putting like their lives on the line, on the streets, were kind of begging people that were in the closet to come out and join them, because this wasn't just like about marriage or like keeping your job if you're gay. It wasn't like a civil rights kind of thing in that way. It was literally like their health and their lives on the line, because obviously a lot of closeted gay people could kind of still live a life, while they were in the closet at that time, or like still. But so this was kind of like, there was like a huge messaging of the time, like for begging these people to come out. So that was on my mind throughout writing this, and that scene with Miguel, the protester, that was definitely, that was for sure on my mind while I was writing that scene. And a lot of that was just kind of Miguel laying out, like laying into him about everything, about what side is he on, just about, he kind of like opened his eyes to like what the cops were doing. So that is like an important scene, and definitely kind of the turning point for Barbie.
That's amazing to hear, and I wish there was a way that this could be longer than 5 issues. Like, I would love to see Barbie have this elongated thing. And like, obviously, we're like stuck in a time frame per se, but like, it would be amazing to see where this could develop.
Yeah, I will say we cover a lot in 5 issues, so I'm excited to hear what you think. I made sure that each issue was like pretty dense and covered a lot of these issues, because I was like, I only have 5 issues. I need to say and kind of play with this as much as I can, while keeping it obviously satisfying and coherent. But
like, you did a lot in issue 1. I was blown away.
I tried to cover a lot each issue.
Wow, I'm still just like in shock at how amazing this book is. Like, I don't want to just like sit here and give you praise to the end of time, but like it just, it speaks volumes to me and like means so much. And I want to like you had like in your the Beat article, you spoke on like the importance of tackling not only the LGBT issues but also the like the people of color issues, and like you even purposely made like Miguel a person of color. Like, you made that a specific thing. Even you were speaking on it earlier, like off mic, of one of the issue 2 variants being like having Miguel on the cover. And I want to know, like for the people who like haven't read the article, I'll link it in the bio of the episode, but like in the tweets of the episode. But for those who haven't read the article, what made you purposely focus on that? And especially, there's the stigma of not like either yes you are an LGBT like LGBT representative, but like you also being Caucasian like kind of creates the like the vibe for a lot of people that like you don't have to cover this. But what made you want to cover this?
Well, I will always in a way feel an obligation to, as a white cis guy, queer guy writing anything, and just trying to look outside of my own view and experience, but keeping in mind that these are not like my experiences, and a lot of these stories aren't mine to tell, but I was looking at I was doing my research, and I was reading a lot of books, and I was watching a lot of films, shows, documentaries, and the majority, which just isn't surprising, focus on white, gay men, cis men, and they are you kind of only see their experience through the AIDS crisis, and then like a
Yeah.
lot of and and a lot of queer stories in general. Um, and then I had Barbalien, who's a character that already exists, who is a white, gay, cis Martian man. So I immediately was like, oh, so I'm doing an AIDS story, and I have a white, gay, cis man as a lead. Um, so I knew right away that like I didn't want to fall into that larger canon of like AIDS media. And I felt an obligation to also put a spotlight on like other marginalized stories. So I made it a goal to include as many marginalized stories as I could. I wanted, while Barbie is like the protagonist, I wanted his story to be about his privilege.
Hmm.
Um, So I was like, if I'm doing, like, it's kind of tricky because he's a Martian, but
Yeah.
he chose a white skin. He chose a police officer as his profession. So it's kind of talking about that. And if I was going to do a story with another white lead, it had to be about tackling white privilege, white complacency, and in it, white complicity. So I So I was like, "Okay, we're doing that other like the lead activist who in my mind is the real horror like the real hero of the story is Miguel, and he is so like a lot of the story is about him. But so I have him. The end of issue 1, spoiler if you haven't read it yet. But it ends with Barbie walking in on an underground gay nightclub, which is filled with BIPOC people and drag queens, and it looks almost like Paris is Burning. So I knew that I wanted I wanted to address that and show the AIDS experience from that underground like um, Black and Latinx queer subculture that was so beautifully shown in Paris is Burning. So I went out of my way to make sure that I was showing or I was spotlighting these different experiences. And in other issues, I can't spoil it, but like I continue that. And I show different things that I won't talk about. But that was definitely on my mind. And that's kind of the reasoning of why I chose to tell the story this way.
Excellent. I'm hoping that the rest of the series like continues the vibe you're going with, and I'm glad to hear that it is because just and to see that underground scene, and they didn't even hesitate. They immediately were like, "Hey, come in, you're fine, don't stress." That was like a breath of fresh air that I kind of needed when I read it after like everything that's been going on this past year. And you and I even said off mic, like, "Hey, let's wait to do this till after the election." And it's like,
Yeah.
like everything that's been going on the past few years that we've dealt with, and especially as someone like me who is gay and black, it feels like there really is nothing for me, and like I wish I could go back in time and tell Jeff, "Hey, like, you notice how like all of DC's media is making Martian Manhunter black? Can you make Barbie black for me? Like, please, like that would be amazing." And to see him tackle it not only from a black perspective, but from a cop perspective and a gay perspective would be insane. But even what we
Mhm.
have now, like the ability that he can pass as a white man, like it almost
Mhm.
speaks to the recent Lovecraft Country with the transformation. It goes to that level of realism of, hey, I get to see this from a lens. Granted, I can change to whatever color I want to, but I
Mhm.
like this is the persona I've chosen, And on top of that, I'm still something totally different on the inside while also being gay. And it's
Mhm.
just like it's like that Shrek onion. Like you keep peeling the layer
I know.
of it, and it's just I love it
I know, it's
so
very
much.
yeah. He's such an interesting character. But, like, I did wanna just comment, isn't that club scene the most beautiful double page
Yes.
spread?
Like
Like,
I
Gabriel sent that to
oh
me, and I would like, when I saw that, I just oh my gosh, it's like, out of everything in the whole series, that's one of the pages that just makes me just so happy when I see it.
like
Like, it's so
just,
and, like,
just
there's
the
the 2
art in
men.
general.
I know. But then in that page, there's, like, those 2 men just like, holding each other and smiling, and there's, like, the drag queens on stage, and I'm just like, "This is
Yeah.
so queer," and it makes me so happy that this is in a comic book. I'm also,
Like
like I just geek out about it as well on my
oh no,
side.
I love talking about this kind of stuff because you don't see it enough. It's like
Oh, no.
it's almost like stigmatized, the idea of like anything that is this is still kind of underground. Like yeah, like Pride Month comes around and everyone like flips their lid and like puts on the rainbow colors and has a good time. But like
Yeah.
after that, they expect us to just go back to normal society, and we have to keep doing this on the low. And I wish it was different. And to see you like put this out in the open, to see what we had recently with Doom Patrol actually show it, or with like
Mhm.
specifically Lovecraft Country again showing it. We're slowly starting to break that mold of normalcy that society, like heteronormal society, has created. And I love that you weren't afraid to put this on like a mainstream comic book.
Mhm, and I'm looking forward to the day where, like, it doesn't attract headlines or, like, people, like, it'll, like obviously, these images will always matter, but, like, I'm
Yeah,
very excited when when it's less, I don't know, sporadic and or underground, like you said. Um, so, no, I'm glad that I could kind of add this
you
piece to,
paving
like,
the
the whole.
way, and that's amazing. Like I just like even recently because we had things like Snagglepuss that actually
Mhm,
tackled something that you're going to tackle in here, which is the police side of things.
mhm,
And to see it tackled from a whole different angle where well similarly where you have the police officer who is gay, but to see more of the like the origin story of it where he's coming into the underground versus the end of it, and you like seeing what happened in that story and now seeing this. I I don't want to spoil the things for the future for myself too much because obviously it hasn't come out yet, but
mhm.
like I wonder if there's gonna be more conflict, like with not even with the Martian who's coming, but like conflict with the police. Like, are you able to speak on that at all? Like, is there gonna be more of that evolving?
Um, so not a spoiler, but I'll make it clear. The villains of this book are the police, very
Wow.
clearly.
Okay.
So if you're wanting more of that, you will see a lot more of that. There's obviously Boaz running around, trying to catch, Barbie, but I won't spoil things. But yeah, the police will be very much involved with the coming issues up until the final issue. Yes.
That is exciting to see because the ability to because I think with media even recently after everything we've been through this year, we tend to like idolize police. And like yes, like
Mhm.
obviously there are good police officers but the issue itself needs to be addressed that police have a history of not being too kind to our people, and
Mhm.
confronting that in like the public space is something that I really enjoyed that we're finally getting to do. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
and yeah, no, I wrote this, almost a year and a half ago. So it was before, all of the recent Black Lives Matter protests. And obviously those protests brought a whole new surge of, like, awareness and understanding, and it seemed like everyone was sharing, um, all of those kind of like factoids on Instagram and Twitter. But like this huge dissemination of information and like history about police relations with queer people, Black Indigenous people of color. That understanding, I think, is more widespread now because of the Black Lives Matter protests. So when I wrote this, it was before that stuff that had happened, and knew that I was writing on a subject that was contentious. That was contentious. That obviously queer people knew about and people of color knew about, but it wasn't like the knowledge of like defund the police or seeing the police in like a villainous light almost
Yeah,
was still like not that well known back when I wrote this. So I was kind of there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I'm freaking doing this. But part of me was like, this might get a lot. People might be angry that I'm doing this and the things that I'm saying and showing. But since this past year, it's like become so I don't know, like everyone has a better understanding of this topic. So
definitely.
I don't know. So like I'm no longer like worried because I think people understand, which is good. And I think that if anything, like supports the book because people will better understand like why this is so serious and important.
Definitely. I got a couple more for you, and then we'll wrap up. So I didn't know you did this, and I was gearing up on Midtown's website to order a copy of the issue because I like collecting number ones that matter to me,
Mhm.
and I didn't know the Phil Jimenez cover existed, and
Yeah.
I really want to know what made you go with the angle of the ribbon for that.
Oh, I had no say in that. That was fully Phil. So,
Wow.
Phil, um, we reached out to back when I signed on to this, I was like, okay, I want if we're doing variant covers, they need to be done by like queer artists, and I gave kind of my wish list, and um, Phil was one of them. Kevin was one of them. Obviously, I was like, I need a WADA cover. And then we like reached out to these artists, hoping that they would do them. And Phil, like, I did not expect to get Phil Jimenez. I was like, Phil is waiting. He is so big. He means so much to me as a comics creator. Um,
Yeah.
did not expect to get him on board, and he was like right away, like, yes, I want to do this. This is like so important. And then he sent back like 3 mock-up like ideas, um, and each of them was like so good, like so very different,
Hmm.
um, but so good. And then myself and the editorial, we were like that red ribbon one is just so powerful, and it just puts it front and center. And Barbie looks so pissed off.
Yes.
So it just captured so much of the series, and so we were like, let's do this one. And Phil came through with that, um, yeah, it's so beautiful. I'm glad you saw that.
I just like I have a thing about that, and I saw that on the Midtown website, and I needed to get get your view on that, and the fact that Phil Jimenez did it means so much to me, and now I have to
Yeah.
have that,
I
and
know.
oh,
It's so amazing. And that was part of the conversation too when we saw it. We're like, this needs to be the variant for the first issue.
I'm
Because
here
it's just
for
such
it.
a statement.
It is very much the perfect statement, and I'm so thankful that that exists now.
Hmm.
So obviously, like you can't really talk too much if you're like working on anything, but like is there like are you able to give a tease of any other projects or like LGBT focused projects you would like to do in the future in terms of comic books that you would like to tackle?
Um, yeah. So in terms of LGBTQI2S books, I have because I did so much research for this book, I felt like I uncovered this treasure trove of queer history that I had no idea about. And I found so many stories and so many heroes that like I didn't know about. My friends who I talked to didn't know a lot of them, and I felt I don't know, like there were just so many names and so many heroes and so many stories that was like these are like people need to know this. So like one of the things I really want to do is continue to do queer like historical comics, just kind of going into our history and disseminating more of that to people, because I feel like that's very important. And our queer history, in terms of like our our out of the closet history, is only
Mhm.
like decades old. Like we don't
Yeah.
have much, and a lot of it has been closeted on purpose, or a lot of it has not seen the light of day, or it gets hard to track down, or it only exists in like people's memories. So that's like, I don't know, that's something that has become very important to me, and I want to definitely tell more stories that are set in throughout queer history.
I'm excited to see what you do with that because that'll mean a lot to me. Um, I want to thank you so much for wanting to be on this episode. It is such a gift that I got to talk to you this evening. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's very kind. I'm so happy to be here. I don't even know how an hour went by so fast.
Right? Like that's the one thing I love because like writing can be a great way for me to like get my opinion out there when it comes to writing reviews. But what I love about podcasting is that I can sit here and have a real conversation with you and let you sort of be off filter if you want to be and get
Mm.
your like real opinion out there that you can't always get through with a paper interview. And I love
Yeah,
that you gave me that chance to see.
yeah, and I also like fully over edit any paper interview, so it's good to like to get me like this. No, but this was really nice. You were so good at interviewing and keep making like
Well,
a nice, safe,
I'm
comfortable space.
I must say, honestly, I was a nervous wreck. So, like this was probably
No, it was so
the
nice.
hardest interview I've ever done. Normally, when I do interviews for Blurred Grounds, it comes off very easy. But because I can just go into that old school barbershop mode and just have a good time with the crew and talk to folks. But here, this was new ground for me. So I appreciate you like
Well, you
open up.
wouldn't, yeah, you wouldn't even know it. That was really nice. And yeah, I'm really thank you for having me on seriously and like taking the time to talk about this. If anything, it's just really nice to geek out about this
Yeah,
issue. I've been waiting so long for this to come out. It was supposed to come out like for Pride Month, and then COVID pushed kind of
oh,
things back.
dang.
So I've just been like waiting for this, and like it's so nice to like hear people's thoughts and like just talk about it. So thank you.
No problem. You are welcome here anytime after this. Is there any closing thoughts, like anything you would like to pimp besides the book that you want to like shout out for people?
um, oh man, I wish I had something prepared.
I'm about to say this is like usually when I ask my co-hosts if they have a closing statement, but like this is the one where I'm like, hey, do you have anything you want to like promote, like any like any charities, your socials, like anything like that you
Yeah,
want to talk about?
yeah. Please find some local, um, some and trans focused charities, please. Wherever you're listening from in your city, um, they're being hit very hard right now, especially through COVID. I know,
Oh yeah.
at least the ones in Toronto, they've been struggling. So just search out for some local ones, especially, and yeah, that would be very nice and good of you. We should do this separately. Sorry, we should do this again, but once the final issue comes out,
I would love that.
let's make that happen,
I would
and then
love to
we can
make that
discuss the whole series properly.
definitely. So yeah, we'll make that happen. Folks, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Panel to Panel. This has been amazing for me, and we will catch you folks next time, right here, next week, where we will begin the Simone saga. Peace out.